To approve the agenda. Second for approval of the agenda.
Mike Fullerton.
Yes.
Yes. Kimberly Button. Yes. Marcy White. Yes. Roman.
Yes. Item number 3 is citizens' comments. This is an opportunity for the citizens to comment on any matter related to the City of Newcastle Public Works that is not on the agenda. Might remind any potential speakers that all speakers are clearly state their name and address for the record. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person with only one speaking opportunity. Board members will not respond to comments or questions. The chair may end comment period at his discretion, and prior authorization is required for distribution of materials or to approach the board. This time, is there any public comment concerning Newcastle Public Works? Yes, ma'am. Approach the podium, please. State your name and address for the record.
Thank you. I'm assuming this is Public Works. My name is Beverly. Last name is Bray. B is in boy.
Can you pull the microphone up there?
My name is Beverly. My last name is Bray. B is in boy. R-A-Y. I live at 2241 State Highway 76 here in Newcastle. I first want to say, and I know I only have 3 minutes, This has nothing to do with Mr. Leon building his house. Wherever Mr. Leon wants to build his house, he has to fight.
Now, is this an item that is on the agenda?
It is on the agenda.
Okay, so we will address those that are on the agenda when we get to those items. This is only for items that are not on the agenda.
Okay.
So if you have comments to an agenda item, there'll be a speaking opportunity at that time when we address that agenda
This has
item.
nothing to do with his house. This just has to do with the borders. I live next to.
But if it has to do with the action on the agenda item here, we can discuss that when that comes
Okay.
before us.
Thank you. Appreciate your help.
Yeah, is that,
I can hear it,
no,
yeah.
you get that?
Thank you.
Maybe it's not plugged in.
Fix a little technical difficulty here.
Here, you're home.
All right, is there any other public comment?
Comment
Consider
concerning public work?
All right, seeing none, we'll move to item number 4, consent agenda.
Agenda.
For any item, any member of the board desires to remove from the consent
agenda.
addressed individually.
Seeing none, item number 4,
Agenda.
consent agenda.
Make a motion to consent agenda. Second.
Motion and second for approval of the consent agenda.
Mike Fullerton.
Yes.
Jane Reed.
Yes.
Yes. Kimberly.
Yes.
Yes. Marcy White. Carl.
Yes.
Yes.
Item number
Item
5,
number
discussion
5,
of possible action on any items removed.
Removed from the consent agenda.
Be no action on the agenda item. Item number 6,
Item
discussion of possible action on right-of-way proposal and offer for 4.0 Energy LLC for a pipeline right-of-way and valve site to connect to existing pipeline of DCP midstream for the ratio unit in section 22, 9 north, 4 west, Wayne County, Oklahoma.
We're still negotiating on that, so I don't know that there's any action that has to be taken.
All right, no action on that agenda item.
Apologize, I was looking. No. It was fast. Side is operating within, or is within our budget revenues at this point at 84.8, and only slightly ahead in our expenditures at 85.5%. In PWA side of the house, we're also running ahead with revenues at a whopping 95.7% and expenditures being at 87.2%. So they're just a little ahead of that 82.3%. The fire department tax fund has brought in over $1.1 million. We $1.7 million to operate our fire department. On the ARPA money, we have so far that leaves for the contract there is or thousand available at this. Not Lingo. I just did our by December 31st, 2004, when Kevin and I had approached John about the ARPA money, we spent the second half we asked you guys to use towards whatever was left to go towards some. I just want to mention that, keep that in mind, because we will have, yeah, barring any changes to that, a little over. By on our capital projects that are ongoing right now, as far as the fire station, of course, that's done. We just had our ribbon cutting, paid 14 draws to that. Have not quite closed the loan yet. We should be doing that relatively soon. Keep in mind, we'll be putting down a chunk of money from our fire station fund for that. We've paid 8 draws for the new wastewater plant so far, almost $10 million. And we've paid draws for the meters. I haven't had any action on that in a little bit, so I'm assuming there's.
Yes, I did mine last week.
Okay. Self-use tax came in April at $877,823. $747,000 of that was sales. $130,000 was use tax. Because Kevin and I amended the revenue items, we are 1.1% higher than what we budgeted to be, and we're 9.1% higher than we were at the same point last year. Our current indebtedness now is $24,000. That does include, yes, sir.
24,000.
24 million.
Okay.
I wish it was 24,000. That'd
We
be so nice.
get that paid off.
Yeah.
I'll take care of that right.
That does include the 3 loans we have. Quick balance is 2 point. Capital improvement is 2.3 thousand. Fund is 38.7 thousand. Parks capital improvement is 5,000. Fire station fund, we have admin and technology fund is grant cost share fund is 2.5. Water impact fees are 1.5. Water impact fee is 837.31 million. Are currently operating, bringing in more revenue than total fund balance right now is. Anybody have any questions for me?
Thank you, Jean.
Thank you.
After the break, general manager's comment.
I spoke with Wall Engineering this afternoon.
Approach the podium and state your name and address for the record.
How you doing? Jeff Clark with 4 Point Energy. Item number 6 on the agenda, after discussion and part of the negotiation with the city attorney, he recommended that we open a discussion tonight regarding the right-of-way, the location of the proposed valve site, and the actual path of the right-of-way. I think there was some concern with the mayor and the city manager on what our location or what our proposal might be. So is there a possibility we could revisit item number 6 on the agenda?
So action on it tonight, and we're still.
Okay.
We could come next. City council.
I think
It's a different.
Oh, different, excuse me.
I think what we would hope to discuss tonight was part of our survey. The purpose of our survey was to establish a proposal for us, and I think me presenting what our plan was going to be, there was some discussion or maybe some possible issue with the location of our proposal. So whatever objections might be had by the city, we would like to maybe discuss that before we just, it's not our way or the highway, so to speak. We want to work with you guys regarding the placement, the terms of the right of way. It does no good for us to survey our proposed path if the city's going to have an issue with it, or if there's, the city, as Mr. Bryant, you've proposed to us, the city has a pretty big plan of development for this tract of land, and we don't want to come in full steam ahead with what we want to do. We want to collaborate with the city on that plan rather than just, impose our will, so to speak. We want to work with you guys and address any concerns that there might be, and maybe get some more information from you all, the parties at the city that have issue or have expressed issue.
The issues actually had been pretty much relayed to me, and we had kind of talked about two proposals you were going to work on. One was originally, the other was an option that may move the gas piping facility, gas handling facility further to the west end of the property, and we wanted to compare some costs for that. So if we can continue to work on that, I'm sure I can bring that back to a more productive discussion another time.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Trustee comments? Oh, so general comments, sorry.
Yeah, just a couple of quick things. I spoke with Wall Engineering prior to the meeting and working on some things for the materials for the. Secondly, basically set the flow area for the new wastewater treatment plant, and we'll be getting that technical. Take that on to now for a discharge permit. I did ask what kind of time frame we may be looking at for that is submitted. He said he has seen it done once, but most likely 1 year discharge permit. However, he did say that they're a morphe.
Okay. I know. I thought you were talking up here. I'm like, where you know that's gonna?
Oh, no, yeah.
I was getting worried about complaints.
But we
And,
can,
okay.
we can move forward with engineering.
Yes, we can move forward with engineering design in that time frame. He also did mention that he expects they will send out RFQs, different manufacturing companies. Hopefully by the end of June, we will have some meetings scheduled with those companies. Moving on.
Item
Now that I
9,
know.
trustee comments? None. Item number 10 is adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion and second for adjournment. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. I'm gonna call the May 13th, 2024 meeting of the Newcastle City Council to order. First item on the agenda is roll call.
Carl Nap,
Here.
Mike Fullerton,
Here.
Shane Reed,
Here.
Kimberly Sutton. Here. Marcy Black. Here.
Item number 2, discussion and possible action on approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion second for approval of the agenda.
Mike Fullerton,
Yes.
Shane Reed,
Yes.
Kimberly Sutton,
Yes.
Marcy White.
Yes.
Yes. Item number 3 is citizens' comments. This is an opportunity for any citizen and on any matter related to the city of Newcastle that is not on the agenda. Might remind any potential speakers that all speakers shall clearly state their name and address for the record. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person with only one speaking opportunity. Council members will not respond to comments or questions. The mayor may end comment period at his discretion, and prior authorization is required for distribution of materials or to council. This time, is there any public comment concerning the city of Newcastle? Item number 4, consent agenda. Is there any item on the consent agenda that any member of council will be removed and addressed in the and move to item number 4, consent agenda.
Motion. Second.
Motion second to approve the consent agenda.
Yes.
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 Yes. Item number 5, discussion of possible action on any items removed from the consent agenda. Being no action on that agenda item. Item number 6, discussion of possible action regarding assessment of drainage systems serving Country Club subdivision by Poe and Associates Inc. Consulting Engineers.
We have Mr. Sean drainage study that they performed, analysis.
A deep dive here, but the current values of these homes today, $725,000 to $1.4 million. So quite a range there. If you want to buy one of those vacant lots, there's one for sale for $120,000 today. These are minimum 1 acre or half acre lots, closer to 5/8 acre generally. The developer was Kenneth Richardson of Metroplex Properties, also Richardson Homes, as you probably know, and I think they built most of the homes in this subdivision. The engineer of record, which was most relevant to our work here, was Brown and Macklin Consultants, small firm out of Oklahoma City. I don't think they're still operating. I know Mr. Macklin is deceased, but we were able to get some of their records, and it was helpful to our assessment. You have public streets and public water systems, private sewer systems in Country Club Estates. We gathered lots of data naturally in our process. We are fairly new to this area. We come at it from hopefully a very objective point of view. Staff was great to help us with all the records, final plat, drainage study. Unfortunately, we were not able to find the engineering plans, specifications, or the as-built drawings. So that's a bit of a disadvantage. I'll speak to that here a couple times as I go along. That would have been great to have that full package. They just weren't available. Staff tried real hard to find those. Did a lot of field observations to make up for that. Got lots of great input from staff. reviewed the video of your meeting on March 11th, so we heard all the comments from the residents. That was really helpful to hear their concerns. Did a pretty deep dive into your subregs and infrastructure standards. Lots of great mapping data. You have a wonderful mapping system here, by the way, as well. Had a wonderful dialogue with Mr. Gordon Harness. Apparently he is your Planning Commission chair for life. What a nice man he was. He spent a lot of time with me on the phone, and he really is your institutional knowledge, and I learned a lot from him. In fact, he signed the plat in 2008, so he was the chair in 2008 as well. I appreciate him very much, very gracious, and it helped a lot. I'll speak to a couple of his points as I go along here. So the street and drainage system in this subdivision was designed by Brown and Macklin. Again, we didn't have the plan, so we're doing the best we can without those. 26-foot full-depth concrete streets. Mr. Harness mentioned that wasn't normal. Asphalt streets were normal back then, but there was remember the recession of 2008, and he remembered that the costs of concrete versus asphalt were upside down, and the developer chose to do concrete. It was a really good choice, and they're holding up really well. I'll speak to that here in a moment as well. This is what we call the rural road design, and that's important to our discussion tonight. Rural road design, there's a drawing here in a moment that I'll put on the screen, but that is the sort of the street without curbs and gutters, no underground stormwater pipelines of any substance, no inlets, that sort of thing. This is the drainage system is the roadside ditches, the bar ditches. That is the drainage system that Brown and Macklin designed for this subdivision, and that'll be important as we go along through our discussion here tonight. 50-foot rights of way for the streets, 10-foot drainage and utility easements each side, so 70 feet of dedicated rights of way and easements centered on the streets. That is your current standard today. So they really met many of your current standards of today back in 08. They built a dam, and you can see it here in the image on the screen. That's unique. I wish we had the dam plans. Didn't mean to sound that way. I wish we had the plans for the dam. But you can see it, and if you've not been there, this is a public street called Halsey Way that goes over the dam and accesses several lots on the backside. This is the lower western portion of the subdivision. This is an unnamed tributary that they turned into a pond by virtue of the dam, double cell concrete box culvert to run the water through, and it's a wonderful water feature, lovely part of the subdivision there. This is also that lowest portion, that lowest elevation, and I'll speak to that here throughout the comments. That dam created the stormwater detention basin, we believe, although without the plans. It's hard to know that for sure. That's certainly what we believe they were doing, and they were also creating a water feature for the subdivision, so they accomplished both tasks there, and it's a lovely area. It's doing its job to collect the stormwater and detain it before it goes downstream into the Canadian River. Very large drainage area here, 2,142 acres. I don't want to get into the weeds of engineering here, but that is a large area, and most of it is south of this subdivision. So imagine a drop of water falling almost on 16th Street, miles south of here, will find its way to this pond. So not so much relevant to tonight, but as the development of Newcastle goes forward, it'll be really important to enforce your stormwater regulations, contain that water upstream, because it's all going to end up in country club estates in this pond and channel. It's hard to think of that in real terms. It's hard to see it out there in the field, but that is the size of the drainage basin here. Something else really unique about country club estates is the vertical relief here. I've been doing subdivision work for 40 years. I don't think I've ever seen 66 vertical feet of elevation change in one subdivision, and that's important to our findings here in our evaluation. Most engineers would dream to have 66 feet of vertical relief to work with in designing a stormwater system, and I think that's one of the reasons this system is still working so well. There is a FEMA floodplain in that channel. It comes up the banks. It does not touch any of the lots. Code of ordinances, we dug pretty deep. I just made some key points here for you to consider. This was designed under the 1986 code. As I understand it, the city was in process of updating your subregs during this time, but they didn't get adopted until October of 2009. Mr. Harness referenced it, I wrote it down in our conversation, he referenced the 5/8 lot design standards. I don't know if that was a formal thing or if that was just his view of what this subdivision was designed for, but it was his view of the large lot subdivision, and that's really what this is. These are larger lots than your typical residential subdivision, and he thought there were design standards that they used back in '08. What we found really is the public infrastructure meets your current standards, which is really interesting. So they were designing, I think, for a higher standard, even in '08, and even knowing that the standards were different, at least on the record, standards were different. So for instance, one of the standards says you can't have a street gradient greater than 10%. The maximum gradient of these streets in Country Club Estates is 7.7%. That's very steep by street standards, but it does not exceed your maximum standards. So there's an example of how they were meeting those standards that you have today. Again, the roadside bar ditches were designed, constructed, and accepted by the city, we believe, in '08. We found Google Maps that show them. Now they're rough. Again, when you build a street and grade those ditches into undeveloped lots, it's going to look a little rough on the photo. But we believe they were designed, constructed, and ultimately accepted. So every lot of the 42 lots had the roadside bar ditches, which again is your drainage system in the subdivision. The driveway culverts vary in size and design. That's a little bit a departure from your standards. In fact, in the subdivision we found lots of different sizes, types. Some driveways have no culvert, so it's a little bit across the board on what's been developed or replaced in these driveways and the roadside ditches. Mr. Harness also mentioned, for those of us who lived through the 2013 tornado in this region, it impacted Newcastle and it impacted this subdivision. So he remembered homes in this subdivision that might have been completely wiped out or certainly impacted and had to be rebuilt. And he surmised that that might have been the time that some of these folks filled the ditches. He wasn't sure about that, but he thought that might have happened. Also looked at your the restrictive covenants. After the plat was filed on June 26, Mr. Richardson went down to McLean County and filed the covenants on June 27, 2008. They're really pretty good. I'm not a covenant expert, but I've read a lot of them, and these are as good as any I've seen, certainly in '08. Article 1.25 is the one I wanted to point out to you tonight. It says that no lot owner shall construct or permit to be constructed any fencing or other obstructions which would impair the drainage or storm or surface waters over and across his lot. So even their restrictive covenants, which are not enforced by the city but by the HOA, disallow filling of the roadside ditches in our view. Just for the sake of discussion, the HOA fees in '08 were $200 per year, and those are in those covenants. Don't know what they are today. So here's just a general summary of our findings, and again, a lot more detail in our report that you have in your packet. The drainage report by Brown and Macklin, dated in February '08, is incomplete. That doesn't mean it's wrong or it's a problem. In fact, it's fundamentally very sound from an engineering standpoint, but without those plans and specs that we would have, usually those things go together. We look at the drainage report along with the plans and specs, and that's how we know what the drainage report guided them to do. So without those plans, we were a little bit at a loss there, but I can tell you the report was very sound. We give great detail in our report to you on what they intended to have happen. We think most of that happened with the initial build of the subdivision. The engineered drainage system, which again is that roadside ditch system, has certainly been modified. We didn't find any revised engineering design reports or standards or plans that said why they did that or how they did that. But certainly the roadside ditch system, the drainage system, has been modified in Country Club Estates. You can see in the photo here in the drawing, it's interesting, some of the lots filled the ditch, some of them did not. In fact, there's some textbook examples out there of exactly the way they should look. And I think it's about half of the lots, roughly, that did retain that roadside ditch. The drainage system is working great. It's the other half that did this, and you can see it's rather random. The lot on the upper side of the photo filled the ditch, as you can see, filled it all up. The next one next door did not. So this one, that with the erosion happening, that pipe that was put in that ditch when they filled it is discharging all that energy. That's what happens when you put water in a small orifice like that, and when it comes out, it's going to come out and cause erosion. And these are very erodible soil. This is river basin, loamy soils out here. So that's an interesting finding, that about half of the lots have filled the ditch and affected the drainage system. We think some of the ditches were replaced with culverts. We don't know, can't see them. We don't know about sizes. We don't know about the connections through the system. Those areas where there is no culvert under the driveway, we think there is an underground culvert of some kind, but we just don't have those records, so we had to make some assumptions there. City codes are pretty clear that require the roadside bar ditches to remain clear of obstruction. So your codes are very sound, we found, and would certainly discourage the filling of these roadside ditches in any neighborhood where it was designed the way this one was. City codes require property owners and HOA to maintain the roadside ditches. They're certainly maintaining their properties very well there, but in many of the cases there is no ditch left. The public streets we found were collectively in good condition. There is some settling and cracking and that sort of thing going on, which could be attributed to part of the surface water drainage system, could be groundwater issues, could be a number of things, but when I get to that part, we'll recommend that you at least do some more exploration of your street conditions, which might be tied back to this drainage problem. One of the more important things we found, and again, we don't know for certain, but we have no record of any significant flooding or damage to private or public property here. And having worked in lots of neighborhoods over lots of years in my career, everyone has a different definition of flooding. I found for us, flooding is water coming in the house, water coming in the garage, damage to a structure, damage to a foundation, damage to a retaining wall, a swimming pool, things of that nature. Our records don't indicate that that's what is happening in this subdivision. Doesn't mean there's not a problem, but I've seen issues much worse in my experience. And as I mentioned, none of the lots are located in the FEMA floodplain. So some recommendations we put in your report there. In the perfect world, I am a civil engineer. I've got to go back to Brown and Macklin and support their design. In the perfect world, it would be ideal to restore the roadside ditches. That is the drainage system that was designed. They were designed for 18-inch minimum depths, 2-foot bottoms, 4-to-1 slopes. And as I mentioned, you can go out there on several of these lots, and you can see a little bit of it here, the way it should look. That would be ideal. We understand that might not go over great with the residents. So one of our engineers on staff, I thought, came up with a clever notion here, maybe call it a phased improvement, but you could install PVC drainage basins. These are simple little drainage basins. You can buy them at a landscape shop or a hardware store. Upstream from each driveway. This one wouldn't need it, of course, because they have the roadside ditches and the culvert, but as a way of being less disruptive to the property, instead of digging up the entire front yard and replacing driveways and all that sort of thing. This would go a long way to collecting that stormwater coming off the properties and coming off the street and get it away from the pavement. You could tie that drainage basin into the underground culverts, and it would be an interim, maybe a little less disruptive, less costly method that the residents could do to restore the drainage system. One of the more important findings here, and it's in your report, the city did some televising of the storm pipelines out here and found, you can see that in some of the images in the report, found some issues. I strongly encourage the stakeholder group, whatever that city and neighborhood, to take a hard look at that. These are the larger diameter storm pipelines that were put in with the original stormwater system. So they tend to be the road crossings, the road crossing down west going into the pond and so on. They've got all kinds of joint failures, all kinds of debris build up. One of the images shows a piece of wood sort of stuck diagonal in between the pipe. I thought I'd seen it all. And then my favorite is the utility pipeline that's going right through the middle of the storm pipeline. We've seen that happen lots of times in my experience, that when they bore utilities, they don't know what they're boring through sometimes. Those issues really need to be addressed. That is the major part of the stormwater system, and without some attention to those, you will start to see some real serious issues with stormwater discharge in that neighborhood. And then finally, some of the residents mentioned there might be stormwater coming off from the east, agricultural property to the east through the Country Club Road ditch system. We weren't able to confirm or deny that. We did not do field surveys with our work here. But one of the interesting things about the drainage report we found is Mr. Macklin specifically called for the water coming off of Country Club, if there was any water, excuse me, coming off of Country Club, that it go around the subdivision. So he proposed two grass line channels, one on the north boundary, one on the south boundary of the subdivision. We don't see those in the field. I can't say that they're not there, but he did recognize that if water was coming from the east or from Country Club Road, it was not designed to enter the subdivision. So that would be a good one to follow up, do a survey, and confirm that that's not happening. Also to confirm that those swales were in fact built or could be restored for the subdivision. Some final thoughts here for you to consider. This is a problem, but we don't see it as a chronic, urgent problem in my experience. As I mentioned, a chronic, urgent problem would be flooding of homes, damage to private property, health and safety issues. You're not quite there here, so that you have some time, I think, to work through this with the neighborhood and get these improvements made and restore the system to the way it was intended. As I mentioned, topography is our best friend here. With 66 feet of vertical elevation change, that system is still handling the 100-year storm. It's flying down the hill. And I think that's the only explanation we can come up with for why you're not seeing more damage. It is so steep that even in a heavy rainfall flooding condition, that water is flowing down whatever is left, whether it's the street or the edge of the street or the backyard swales. Mother Nature is doing her job with the simple topography. As I mentioned, the public streets we think are in really pretty good condition collectively. You've got some issues that are coming on, and we think that is partially caused by some of these drainage or changes to the drainage system, and we encourage you to address that and try to maintain the condition of those streets. Also encourage you to consider a policy. One of my favorite policies in my work in municipal public works, we call them the engineered grading plans. I won't get into the weeds here, but some cities have adopted this requirement of developers and make them design the entire subdivision corner by corner. So when they submit that plat to you, they're also submitting an engineered grading plan, and before that home is given its occupancy certificate, the city and the developer home builder are confirming that every elevation on every corner of every lot is what it was supposed to be. If you can ever work toward that and get that system working, these problems like you're having in Country Club Estates will go away. I lived through many of them, and this is, again, one of my favorite policies that we adopted. I worked for the city of Norman for a number of years, and we had this program there. And then the low-hanging fruit here, all remaining development, the 4 lots that are left, there is one under construction right now on Sarah Lane. I just encourage the city to make sure they put those ditches back the way they were designed. I can already see the dirt pad sloughing off into the roadside ditch on that home under construction. So that's an easy one. Let's just make sure that the 4 remaining homes are built correctly with that roadside ditch, and that will go a long way to retaining that system. Happy to take any questions. Sorry to drag on so long here.
But if however, if that happened, every driveway would have to have.
Yes, sir. Generally, that's correct.
Right. And there's a mixture of which ones. That in itself would be a major homeowner because
Yes, sir, very costly. Now, the only exception to that I might offer is it's possible that that culvert is still there. We can't see it under the driveway, and it's connected to another pipe that filled up the ditch. So that might be some consolation if that were the case. We just don't have those records.
And what explains, if I may, or let's see,
It slid pipes inside one another. It took us
Yeah.
up and then
so I don't want to dig too far into that detail, but
Yes, there's a photo in your report. You'll see, that we can't tell what it is. It looks like it might be a gas line or a conduit,
yeah.
but it goes right perpendicular to the storm pipe.
went perpendicular.
Yes, it's going right through it, and of course, that will become a debris catch over time.
looks like it had a fiber optic.
Okay.
Yeah, it could be. I've seen it many times.
Being
That
orange.
corrugated metal that is 16 years old gets pretty soft, and that boring machine will go right through.
That answers my question.
I guess our biggest issue is going to be if the pipes underneath the driveways are even adequate. We didn't start the permits for driveways until later on. The question will also be whether or not the pipes underneath the driveways are capable of carrying the flow that's coming down the hill.
Right, what condition they're in, that sort of thing, you bet. And that's one of the reasons that I think our engineering team thought, well, maybe as an interim option, you can install these inlet systems to see if you can get the system functioning again at a very low cost and very less disruption to the properties.
Questions by council?
Soil conditions underneath there, I'm looking at page 6 of your report, top left-hand corner of the, looks like already is a drainage area pipe right there, but
Right.
do we feel like that's ponding enough right there and not going down, that it's deteriorating our road underneath?
We do think that that's possible. That's what's happening. Let me get to the right page here. Yeah, you can see that, particularly that left image. That certainly is a settlement of the pavement. That could be that water infiltration along the edge. Although you've got some pretty shallow groundwaters in this location. This is river basin soils. We're down at the lower end here. You're right next to that channel. So we're really not certain if it's groundwater, surface water, or a combination of the two.
Any recommendations on making sure that's?
We did make some in there, just briefly. There are methods you can use that are fairly low cost to explore the condition of the pavement without actually removing it. Of course, the easiest way is to remove it, but that's more costly and more disruptive. But there are some methods in our industry that you can use to sound test those pavements.
I don't know if we ever need to know this, but I didn't follow the part about the proposed PVC devices that what are you referring to on that?
No, I have an idea of what he's talking about.
Just area drains.
Yeah, these are just area drains. You probably have a lot of these in your parks. You tend to have them in park areas. They're probably 18 inches square. PVC, hard plastic material. They've got a pipe connection going down to the underground pipe in this location. So it's just a way to collect the stormwater off of the surface, real simple to install, tie it into that culvert below, and that water would then enter the inlet as opposed to entering the edge of the pavement, and that.
It just has to be placed in the right place
And
to
that's where
collect
you,
correct.
and that's where you have a culvert under, and you have to have the culvert there to go to,
Yes.
but
Exactly.
But that doesn't apply to the bar ditch, does it?
It certainly wouldn't replace the capacity you would have in a bar ditch, but it would certainly pull that drainage, that runoff away from the pavement, which was
Right.
our intent there, and away from the property. And it would, if it were done properly and consistently through all of these parcels that fill the ditch, we think it would go a long way to addressing the problem for now. It may not solve it forever, but it would be a very low-cost, quick and dirty method to make an improvement without disrupting all their driveways and properties. Yeah, appreciate that. So, and it's block 2, and we tried to address that in our report. The city has installed a curb. We understand why that was done. It was probably a good idea, frankly. But in the drainage report, Mr. Macklin fully intended for that water to enter that backyard easement area between those lots. Yeah, it's clear in his report. I suspect it was built that way when they built the initial public improvements in the subdivision. There aren't as many obstructions back there, at least based on the aerial photography we were looking at, as you might think. So it is, I think the water is still, what enters that space from the properties is still migrating down south. But I think cutting it off from Stanton Avenue was probably a wise choice on the city's part.
Any other questions? All right. Any public comment concerning this agenda item? I may call you back up, Mr. O'Leary. Thank you.
Sure.
State your name and address for the record.
Artie Puckett, 1628 Northwest 35th Terrace. I mean, I would just like to talk about, as far as the notion that keeps getting brought up, is that the homeowners changed and filled in these ditches. When I built my house in 2007, we didn't fill in or do anything like that. And the city actually came out before I closed, the inspector, and made me change the flow of my front yard. And so for you guys to say, or keep saying, that the homeowners changed it, that's just not true and not what happened. The city inspector came out, made me add, before we could move in, right when we were fixing to, we had to come out and add French drains and some other stuff to redo the front yard drainage. So I know in the paper, Kevin had said that, you know, we went and this, you know, residents made changes. That's just not what happened. And so to hear you guys talk about it, and then it seems like you're pushing it back on us to go back and put it back like it was. Well, this is like it was. Wasn't any change made. Now, maybe somebody in the very beginning changed something. I can't say. You could pull up maps, I guess. But for the majority of the houses that I'm aware of, since it would be like 07, no one's filled in anything that I've ever seen. I know that would be a big undertaking if you're going to fill in. You had to bring a dump. If you have, you know, you're going to fill in like a huge ditch there, you're going to have to bring in a bunch of dirt, resod it, redo your sprinklers. That hasn't happened. So the notion that you guys keep bringing up that it has is just not true.
Thanks, sir.
You're welcome.
Name's Craig Smith. I live at 1725 Northwest 35th Terrace. Resident there for about 7 years. In fact, this picture right here, I'm glad it's. He actually cleared out. Fresh dirt we dug out. Velocity did not do anything there. That was digging that out. So we did. I bought this lot right here and at the bottom of the hill. Right there. I sat right next to the pond slash. I bought my lot from an individual destroyed in the 2013. Part of my final inspection to get my certificate of occupancy, I had, in fact, I was already formed up from my the prior owner had a all the way down that feeds in. I've had to continue on. Photos or something, but it was cut off about 5 feet after this section of the driveway, and then way over here, within about 30 foot of the pond, was the other part of it. I actually was told to move my driveway out of the way and continue that drain pipe and tie the two pieces together. At the time, I had never bought corrugated pipe, didn't know where to get it, and I was told to go get it out on Highway 76. I had to put it in there and actually reposition my there for my. The whole point of explaining this to you is that even though you may say that it said that in the drawings, there was inspectors that made me put that pipe back into place and redo my driveway positioning to get the water to drain right. I'm at the bottom of the hill. I have zero problem. The water, it's so steep coming down through there. I don't even get touched. And in fact, when it unless you're out there taking pictures, 15 or 20 different videos of when it rains real hard of the water running down there. Get it off the road. Like I said, you may get, and I'm not trying to be an engineer. I'm not an engineer, but I know you haven't had privilege to see how this acts when the water happens. You can't get very much of the water to even go off the street. I think the original concern we had was that there were 2 or 3 radiuses coming off 35th Terrace onto Sarah Drive. There was a separations occurring where the 2 pieces of cement separately, where the tin horn put underneath the street was poured with a cement at about a ½ inch. I called the city back in 2018 on, and they come out and recocked that and tried to fill in with a little bit of cement. That lasted about 2.5, 3 weeks, and it broke apart. And just over the years, the water running in there keeps eroding the road underneath that crack where that radius is. If you'd see a picture, anybody could see what's going on. It's running underneath the street and collapsing the street in those areas. And that has nothing to do with the drainage. It has to do with the water coming down the street, hitting those cracks in those street radiuses. Now, you may have pictures of it. But to maybe give it a little more education and light on what happened, the other northern street, 35th, me being a builder, it just piqued my curiosity when all this started going on. So I went back and I know all the builders that were in there, spoke to them about what occurred on 35th Street, why they've had a little more problems over there. When that street was being developed, there was about a 4.5 foot large tree that was sitting right in the middle of the proposed street down through there. When they took the bulldozer and hit that to knock it out, he said the ball of the tree was almost 20 foot round. The ball, when it knocked the tree over, it's probably a 30, 40-year-old tree. He said a natural spring popped up and they had continuous flow of water underneath there that they could not get under control. They called the city. I think he said the city manager at the time came out there and looked at it, and this was, I guess, would be in about 2006 when they were actually doing the dirt work, and actually had to put a pipe to try to get that water to get off the street so they could even do the dirt work. And so they actually engineered a piping system to go over onto the side of the road to allow the water in that spring, because it was putting out, he said, unbelievable amounts of water. He said we couldn't get it to dry up. It just kept on occurring. And he said, so with the city's blessing, they rerouted a pipe to try to drain out that spring that was underneath that tree when they popped that tree out of the ground. So there is one pipe that comes out. I could tell you exactly where it was. I just remember I don't see it anymore because people have dumped some cement and other things off the side of the road, and I think they've not blocked the pipe but covered that pipe that was sticking out. Now, what I was told by the original builders, and I don't want to keep too much time, I know, is that the steepness of it, every time they would do the dirt work, as soon as it would rain, it would run and wash out, gully out all the above lots, and it would get down on the final 3 or 4 lots and just fill in everything. There's just so much dirt moving around. That is why they started on one area having to put the pipes underground, because they could not control the erosion. It was so steep and the water was rushing so hard that it would just wash out every time they tried to do anything. They would put grass in, it'd wash it out. 2 of the builders on the other side, on the street that I just was telling you about, that hit the natural spring, were on that same area, that when they dug their footings filled up with water overnight, and they had to have emergency pumps pumping out before the inspectors would even okay to pour the footings in there. So there's 3 properties that I know of on that same street over there that had to have drainage and French drains tying into that drain I was just telling you about, just to control the water leakage. But the gist of what I understand happened was that on the North 35th Street, the water just flowed all the time. In fact, you can go out there right now and do it in the middle of the summer, and there'll be water pouring out. Now, I'd probably say 5 gallons a minute pouring out down there, which is coming from those natural springs that people had to deal with. And that's the reason 2 or 3 of those yards, the original builders put tin horns in the yards, because when they had the culvert, it just was a muddy mess. They could never get it to dry up. It was just a constant water flow. So that was the reason that they started putting on 35th the underground tin horns. So like I said, there was a lot of circumstances, not just people doing it because they didn't like the way the culvert looks, because like he even admitted, half the homes have the culverts. And we're having problems whether they're got a tin horn or they have a culvert. Either one, it really doesn't matter. It's the way the water's running down the street, hitting those radiuses and eroding out underneath the road. Last time we were here, we proposed maybe putting a curb just around those radiuses to try to get that water out of the way so it wouldn't just go into that crack. But, you know, I think we discussed that when I met with Kevin and 3 or 4 of the other people out there. But you have to really understand, I mean, it's phenomenal to watch the water run down there. One of the reasons the backyards, we were talking about where the 2 yards, backyards butt in together, we had video, some of the original homeowners do, of when it was like what you say it should be before they put the curb in up there. There was so much water coming down through there. It was actually because when you build those houses, they're such a steep, you have to pad them where you have a drop pad, because you only have so much room to work with. It was coming so fast down through there, it was washing fencing that they were putting up away. It was creating gullies, and it was actually shooting water 5 to 8 feet off the upper pads. So what I'm getting at is there was maybe in design and in theory it was supposed to work, but in practicality it was not working. So I think a lot of the developers with inspections from the city, again, like I said, I will sign whatever, an affidavit. I had to go in and put in a piping. I was required to, and move my pre-formed driveway that I had formed to pour in 2 days, move that all out of the way, bring in a tin horns, tie it all together, regrade that whole front end, and re-put my deal in before I could get my certificate of occupancy to even get in the property. So I think in 2007, 2008, not trying to speak over anybody, trying to say anything, but I think there was a little bit different, for lack of a better term, vibe with working with the city. And I think a lot of it was, hey, this isn't working, what can we do? And then once it started, it was kind of each person was doing their own thing to deal with the problem they were having. But it was all, from everything I was told, the city manager knew about it at the time, and definitely the inspectors. So, like I said, I'm just trying to shed a light onto what actually happened, because you can go out there right now and say, yeah, this, and that, but until you're out there and seeing the velocity of that water doing what it does, it's hard to understand what you had to deal with when you're just talking about raw dirt and these vacant lots. So.
Comments? Yes, sir.
Could I ask a question before we have another? last two speakers spoke about, yeah, especially the last gentleman. I'm really, and I don't know water flow, so help me understand, but it looks like we heard, last time we heard this topic, water was pouring down the streets. And I can't remember why we also were concerned about the bar ditches, but normally you would be, because if flowing down the street, it's going to flow off the bar ditch. But now I'm reminded it's flowing down both those streets. And the reason it's flowing down both those streets is a curb went up there to keep it from flowing down the middle. Wasn't a bad idea, because if it's flowing down the middle, it's going to ruin all those people home. So we got two. I don't know what the solution could be, and because I do get the feeling from the last meeting is that water pouring down those streets like it's pouring down there has got to be introducing some problem, and yet we don't have the option of not pouring down the street, because the alternative would be pouring down that center aisle, right? So any observation on that, Mike?
I'm bouncing in between the two. 12 years difference in between when some of the houses were built and when some, looking strictly at 35th Terrace. A lot of the homes aren't built yet. Flood built down there. Currently a ditch put in there in 2012, out to April of 23. It's gone. No, I'm talking about on the edge of the bar ditches.
Well, the tin horns that were put in certain locations are about 10 to 12 feet off the road. And we still have, even when there's a tin horn put in, we still have a slant coming off the street, even where there's a tin horn. The only exception, if you go in the whole neighborhood, is my house, where it's got a little bit of a hump to it, where the two big trees are out there.
Yes.
But every one of the other ones have a slope off the street, even when there's a tin horn. So the water, if it wanted to, could travel off the road. And even when you have these areas
I agree, but it's a lot of the water.
I think where we're getting in the weeds is that there's about three obvious things. I mean, I think anybody, if you drove out there and stood and looked at what I'm talking about, you would say, oh yeah, that's obvious. It's the radiuses is what's letting the water get, it's where the two pieces of cement tied together, the Main Street cement, where they poured the cement off for the tin horns. It created a natural gap, because you can't adhere the two pieces of cement unless you put, I mean, I don't really know how you would do it. You'd have to put rebar and everything else to try to tie it together, and you'd still have a natural crack. But it's over the years that crack has swelled because of it washing more and more and more and more away. I really do believe that if we fixed 3 or 4 radius areas, I'm talking about 30 to 40 feet curbs just in those radius areas, to covering those cracks up and sealing them up, the water would go on down and do what it's doing to get down to the bottom of the hill without really any problems. It's getting caught up in those radius cracks. And, pardon? At the top and midway down the hill, if you go on Sarah Drive, right? This is 35th Terrace.
I'm got it up here.
Okay. You'll see, I've got it on I didn't bring my phone in, or I'd show you. There was actually, in 2018, when I called, the gap was about 2 inches, and they brought some cement out in buckets and poured in there. And that lasted about 2 weeks, because it didn't seal. Cement, you can't use cement as a sealer between a crack. It doesn't seal within itself. Yeah, so what I'm saying now, those cracks that we called about at the top of the hill and then midway down at those radiuses where the streets are collapsing now are about 4.5 inches wide in places. So when the water comes down the street and there's a bar ditch, just like you say needs to be on this area, there's 2 or 3 homes got the bar ditches, has nothing to do with not having the culverts there. It has to do with that water coming down the street at that radius. It goes right down into that crack, and now there's about a 20-foot area of it collapsing. And it's
So far, none of the homes are in the
No.
homes are being damaged.
No.
It's the quality of the streets that.
In fact, when I met with Kevin, he and I, after about the first 30 minutes, he goes, "Oh yeah, we'll take care of this. This is normal stuff." And I kind of stopped and remember saying to him, I said, well, where are we at conflict at then? I'm really not sure what the problem is. I mean, so
A lot of times, off that expansion of that ice.
yeah, because you're letting water underneath the street. Yeah,
So-
I agree with you. That's what I'm saying.
And even if we sealed the streets, the joints, every joint better, it'll still.
Well, see, I think that's where you're misunderstanding what we want. The normal wear and tear of cement streets, just like when you pour a brand new, I pour a brand new home and within 2 weeks I can have a crack in the patio or, I mean, you've all been there. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about where it's actually collapsing, where these certain areas are, where there's only about 3 areas where it's actually doing some damage, and it's because of those radiuses. And I truly feel that if we fix those radiuses where the water can't get down those 2 joints, that you won't have the erosion.
What I'm worried about is cavities underneath the road.
Well, you're getting them now because it's been going on for 3 or 4 years. So that is the problem, is that we've let it continue on, not knowing for sure as a neighborhood whether we had the right to come in and mess with the streets because we were told we couldn't.
So Michael, are you saying that
The water definitely needs to get off the street fast. Pipe or a ditch or.
But it's not going to get off the street to that radius. That's what I'm trying to say.
they're suggesting that water's not going to go over until what?
Yeah, I mean, it was nothing keeping the water from draining off the street. There's still sloped on the sides of the road if it wanted to. It's the splitting of the concrete that we're not doing anything about right now that's causing more
Well,
issues.
I think we beat this thing around
Yeah.
a bit. I think we've got in trouble a couple of times by going out there and saying, I think we should, or may not have been a good idea.
The curb was a good idea because it was killing the backyards of everybody's house.
Well, so right now, I think where we're at now is we're going to look at water engineering. A potential.
Did we have, I mean, I'm just asking, did the engineer report address the radius cracks, the big, I haven't seen it, don't know anything about it. Does it say anything about the?
Well, we're only having one person talking at a time, and it's a guy with the microphone.
Okay. And like I said, we're willing to do whatever you want us to do, what we can and can't do to help.
Right.
And I agree with the gentleman here that said putting those little collectors where we've got a tin horn where you just go burrow down into it. But again, we just did that so you could see, I was trying to show y'all the next day when he was coming out to meet with me, we dug all that out the night before so you could see how the water was running. But those really
we're going to take a look at this. I don't intend on any action on this tonight.
Okay.
We're going to let city staff look this over. We're going to look at the potential options, but moving forward, we're not going to do anything that's not recommended by an engineer.
Yeah, I understand. I'm just
Because
trying to point out some of the things that's very obvious that anybody could see. So
right, like I said, we either we think we should before, and whether or not it was a good idea, it wasn't part of the engineered plans. And I understand what people have said. We've had the same issue in lots of additions. Riverview had the same issue of until they got the grass established, the ditches were horrible. And they had to pull the ditches and clean out the ditches until they got the homes built and got those things. Had some people in Riverview that went in and they put culverts across the entirety of the front of their yard. Similar to what's here. It's sporadically. It's not an entire street like this, because of the issues they had with that. But the vast majority of Riverview is still, once those homes were built and they got grass established, they're functioning.
as the gentleman said, we have a unique problem, I guess if you want to call it a problem in Country Club with not very many slopes like we have. I mean, it's really
Right, and that's why before we do anything, we're going to look it over very
And that's all we're asking is that,
Okay.
you look at it and understand it. My whole reason of stepping up here was just to give you a background and history of actually what happened so you could understand why some of the things happened the way they happened and not
And
just.
we do appreciate that, but we've got a long agenda tonight, so
Yeah,
we've got a lot of
no
other things
problem.
to look at. I want to give other opportunities to speak. All right, name and address and for the record.
35th Place, is it possible for the HOA to get a copy of that report?
It's part of the agenda packet, so yes,
Okay, so where do I go to get that? City Hall or?
visit, but City Clerk can get it
I'll
for
get
you.
it. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment concerning this agenda item? All right, this point in time, I think recommend there be no action on item number 6. I'll go ahead and make a motion for no action.
Yes.
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 Yes. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mr. O'Leary. Item number 7, to get discussion of possible action and recommendations of planning commission. Item number 7A, public hearing discussion of possible action to consider an application for rezoning from PUD planned unit development for Leon Lacey, Redbud RV Park, located in the southeast quarter of the southeast quarter of section 30, township 9 north, range 4 west, Union Meridian, McLean County, Oklahoma, and for adoption of ordinance number 972. Property address 3323 Southwest 24th Street, Newcastle, Oklahoma. Case number R 2024-003.
Good evening, council members. Janae Greenlee with the Newcastle Planning Department. This request is for a rezoning, R 2024-003. It's a rezoning from a PUD to a PUD for Mr. Leon Lacey at 3323 Southwest 24th Street for approximately 20 acres. I'm going to give you a little bit of background regarding this and why it's before you this evening. The original PUD for our Redbud RV Park was approved by City Council in July 8th of 2019. It is for a RV park and for a commercial area adjacent to County Line Road. Highway 76, excuse me. So on the screen here, you can see on the left side, this is the most recent aerial picture that we have. This is the RV park. These are the RV spaces. And the surrounding area is ag to the north and E1 to the east, as well as ag to the west. And then Blanchard is on the south side of the road. When this came before City Council, the site development plan in your staff report, you can see was not developed. So at that time, when staff looked over the PUD, read through the PUD and what the intent and what the PUD allows, we discovered that changes cannot be made until you come back in and go through the process of planning commission and city council approval. About a year and a half, Mr. Leon Lacey came to the planning department and requested to build a single family house because the underlying zoning is E3. And that being said, there was no residential structure on that site development plan. And in the PUD explicitly states that upon approval of this PUD, the provisions, regulations of the development plan contained herein shall not be changed, altered, or amended in any manner except by action of City Council after review and recommendation by the Planning Commission. Any application to change, alter, or amend these regulations shall be processed in the same manner as any other rezoning applications, which involves giving published legal notice to surrounding property owners, same manner that we do any rezoning application. So we had this discussion with Mr. Lacey, and here we are about a year later, and he has decided to amend the PUD and the site development plan and actually bring the site development plan in accordance with our PUD development regulations. So this PUD that he is requesting now is clarified through this master development plan. So what he has done has added he's added 20 more RV spots, and he's added 2 single-family dwellings to be developed on the west side of the property. There are also an allowance for a carport that is behind not the maintenance shop, but the main building for the office, the office. 2 detention ponds, storage facility for on-site residents, and there are existing 4 carports, and like I said, the allowance for 1 more carport. He also is shown on the east side of the creek. The CN1 to be developed as a commercial area has cited a building and also parking area. In the PUD, going over with Mr. Lacy several times, we had adjusted the PUD to make sure that in every section that proper building permits are required, that detention is required, the current ODQ regulations for what septic is required is all outlined in the new PUD. The other main thing that one will be potential of 2, up to 2, no more than 2, will be in this area here. Those are the major additions to this PUD. This still remains a RV park. Long-term stays are not permitted. This is for RV for temporary stays. It's not long-term. It is only allowed for RV park. No mobile homes are allowed in this area, and all the wheels stay on. Obviously, it's not for campers to be parked and take residency there. So those are the main changes with the site plan and with the PUD. Like I stated, in several sections after the Planning Commission meeting on the 29th of April, we went back and made sure that we included the requirement for the building permits, the drainage, the ODEQ report stating that their septic is sufficient on site. So those are the changes that we made. And then what was brought forward to Planning Commission is exactly the site development plan that you're seeing, and that is in your packet. I am happy to answer any questions. Staff does support and recommend approval of R 2024-003. Planning Commission did make recommendation for approval.
On the drives and the parking.
So that one corner was already approved that for commercial zoning?
Correct. That was already included in the original PED document. CN1, commercial neighborhood.
I don't know if we need to know, but do we already know, have they announced the plans for that? How that will be developed?
No, they just had cited the buildings, a building permit and all the requirements with that as well.
Is there any public comment concerning this agenda item? Yes, ma'am. Please first podium, state your name and address for the record.
Beverly Bray, Bray, 2241 State Highway 76, Newcastle. I have a question right quick for this lady.
That is correct.
Is that me?
Yes,
This is for you,
that is correct.
and this is.
That is correct.
Well, I'm very glad to hear that. We have had significant trouble with the screen fence over the course of the last couple of years, and that makes me very happy. I had spoken with Kevin, not this Kevin, Kevin Hagerberg in the office, and he said to bring the pictures in and show them to you and tell you the troubles that we've had with the fence. I'm very glad that that metal fence is there. You can't believe how much garbage blows off of an RV park in Oklahoma wind. It's bad. It blows over our fence. Our livestock, our horse got out after a storm. When the fence, his fence blew our fence down, the horse got out, got on 76, a car hit it, killed the horse, and nearly killed the man. So we're very thankful that he did not die. So I'm glad to see that something's being done. I don't know if you want me to leave these pictures with you. If that's necessary, Kevin said bring them.
If the installation of the metal fence solves the issue that those pictures represent, then there's no need.
As long as that fence goes down that line all the way, it should be fine, because that's the windward side where everything blows. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Have a good evening. Any other public comment concerning this agenda item? That's good.
My name is Dawn Lemmy. I'm at 2226 North Melinda, and I'm representing Darling Rosebrook, who's at 229, just right next door, north of that. I just want to make sure that we, since there was a commitment of 6 months on that fence, that we make sure that somebody, if it's approved, goes out there and make sure that work is done. Because, you know, we kind of fought this when it first came about, and a lot of work was promised. COVID hit, I get it, all that stuff, but We just want to make sure everything is done the way it's supposed to because it butts right up to residents. And also I would like to keep in place that any major changes to the PUD has to come through the council again. Okay, that was it. Thanks.
Thank you very much, John. There is a time limit, Janae, on that?
6 months.
All right.
We have that in writing and confirmation through email. Our code enforcement staff will periodically go out and check, and at the end of that 6 months, make sure that that happens. As he comes in for a building permit, if this is approved by council, that will be something when we go out and do inspections that we will check as well. But we will make sure that that is completed within 6 months.
And if it's not?
If it is not, then we can go to the chapter 1099 and it can be a violation. And he can be up to $200 a day fined.
You have public comment? All right. Thank you very much. This time, is there any other comment from the council? I will entertain a motion.
Approve agenda item 7A.
Second.
Motion second for approval of item number 7A.
Mike Paul,
Yes.
Jean Reed,
Yes.
Kimberly Sutton,
Yes.
Marcy White. Yes. Carl Nell.
Yes. Item number 7B, discussion and possible action on adoption of the emergency clause of ordinance number 972.
Second.
Motion second for approval of item number 7B.
Mike Paul,
Yes.
Jean Reed,
Yes.
Kimberly Sutton,
Yes.
Marcy White. Yes.
7C, discussion and possible action on planning commission recommendation. I'm sorry, sir. Next time you need to make sure and speak when we have public discussion, because this item is closed.
Yes, sir. I just want to say that I really appreciated the hard, long work from staff and aid from members of this council, and the planning commission chairman was gracious enough to spend time with me on some issues to make things very clear to me. And so I've had excellent help, and I appreciate it very much.
All right, thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Item number 7C, discussion of the possible action on planning commission recommendation to approve the final plat of Chickasaw Crossing, section 1.
Good evening, Janae Greenlee with the Planning Department. This is the final plat of Chickasaw Crossing 1 before new Section 1. David Ash is the owner and developer, and Crafton Tall Associates is the representative here this evening. The Chickasaw Crossing's preliminary plat and PUD was approved by City Council August 14th, 2023. This is the site that you can see on your screen, just as on the north side of Southwest 24th, abutting Lakeview Drive and then Redmond to the north. This plat is for the first phase. It's 116 single-family lots, 7,200 square feet per the PUD. The drainage, the overall runoff has been reduced by 4%. Curb and gutter will be used to convey runoff to 2 detention ponds. They are asking for 1 variance of the subdivision regulations in this final plat. Our regulation requires that you detain up to the 500-year flood with 1 foot of freeboard. They're asking for a variance from requiring that 1 foot of freeboard. Most municipalities require the 100-year. We require the 500-year. They can detain more water if they don't have to use that 1 foot of freeboard. Sanitary sewer will connect to the infrastructure near the Oaks. Water will be, they will tap into a 4-inch main that's on Southwest 24th and a 6-inch on Lakeview, and they will install 12 inches across the frontage of their property. They have 1 access with this phase that'll be on Southwest 24th. They have met the conditions and regulations per our subdivision regulations, and staff recommends approval of the final plat for Chickasaw Crossing Section 1. The applicant's engineer is here for a brief presentation as well. I'm happy to answer any questions.
All the lots are 7,200 square foot?
That is correct.
That's the
But
smallest?
all the
lots in this
except for the
phase.
senior. Yes, in this phase.
Yes, all the lots in this
That's
phase.
all, well, that's all we need.
Yeah,
Okay.
there is a senior portion where they are meeting that 7,200 square foot lot requirement, but they are duplexes.
Okay. I just want
That's
to
a
know
50,
what we have. in
this
front of us.
phase is all
Yeah.
7,200 square feet.
That works for me.
I will make mention here that we had a meeting with the engineers last week.
Thursday.
One day last week.
Yeah.
Discussing this development and also the water that area, because it will be fed from piping around that. Also serves the Oaks. Every summer that we have supplied water to Blanchard with the 4-inch line on 24th Street, which comes from the Lakeview Tower. At points they have bled us dry, basically, in that tower, and our pumps could not keep up. Blanchard is now off that line. They've been off that line for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
As Anthony here with sorry, I don't know.
Craft and Toll.
Craft and Toll, okay. Anthony will explain basically how phase one here will be served, the hydraulic analysis and things of that nature, with the current water supply that we have. However, we had discussions last week during our meeting. Once we get into phase two and beyond, we still think as a city that we're going to have a volume issue. Not necessarily pressure issue, but volume issue. Not enough water for further phases of this development and the Oaks and whatever else may develop after that period. 6 elevation complex for one. And now they've talked about doing their own tower on their property. That's another topic. But we want to make sure, and they understood this, and we both agreed, the city and Craft and Toll agreed, that yes, phase one, there should be no issues whatsoever with volume of pressure. But as we get beyond that point, we could be talking about some issues out there, and upgrades to the system, to the water system, would need to be made. Whether that's a partnership between the two entities to do that, whether it's requiring David S. Holmes to do something, or whether the city does something as well. So that's where we're at on this, where it ended up.
I mean, I'm concerned that currently, without this online, after Blanchard quit pulling from us, there are still water pressure issues in the Oaks. And so going into a situation and not improving the volume of water to an area that already has pressure issues, and then somewhat saying, okay, you can move forward with your development and we'll try to figure it out later, maybe jointly, maybe who knows. I don't want that burden to come back fully upon the city, because I truly think that one house additionally built there is not going to be beneficial to the overall pressure system we have in the evenings, in the summer, when everybody turns on their sprinklers. There's already a demonstrated pressure issue that we get to without any additional residences in that area. So we're kind of, in my opinion, it appears like we're putting a Band-Aid system together to get this addition started, and it's not going to get any better as we move forward without a significant increase in volume. Those are just my thoughts, but I don't want to be dealing with a bunch of angry citizens from the Oaks when they have no water in the middle of summer, and we've allowed a significant number of homes to hook onto them, hook onto the supply that they've got going. And I know hydraulic analysis, and I'm not an engineer. I just know that the current system we got is barely keeping up, and sometimes not keeping up in that area. And to add additional homes without adding additional volume is very concerning.
Where's the biggest line it connects to?
There's some
62?
12 inches in the area. We need a 12 inch of 62 in the end.
Right, that's what I'm wondering.
So that's where our water supply is coming from. Anyway, those are my major concerns. I have no problems with the layout, with the housing, with anything else, other than we've got a known issue already with water there, and I don't know that adding additional dwelling units without adding additional volume is going to do anything. No matter what hydraulic analysis says, you know, you talk about peak demand in the evenings in the middle of August, when everybody turns the water hose on. I think we're going to have some big problems.
How many homes in phase one?
116.
What?
116.
Is phase one and section one the same?
Yes.
This is
Yes.
phase, right?
Yes.
So,
And
1,400 feet.
400 feet.
40.
But-
Thank you, sir. Yeah.
62?
From 62.
About a
40.
mile.
About a mile.
But then past them, it's still 4 inches. It goes down to 4 inches all the way to the.
That's correct. Now we're doing engineering right now and probably be laying the line here in this next budget year from Twisted Oak all the way down to Ross. Which it'll be a 12 that's connected to 2 6s, which will boost the flow
Where's
in the
Ross?
Oaks.
Ross comes south at Richland Park.
Oh, okay.
And Kevin can testify that Richland Park, where that's coming from, has pressure issues in the summer already too.
Well, it's better. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, but so we're hooking onto an area that already has some pressure issues. They're better, but it's got known pressure issues because of, I mean, we're doing a good loop, but that loop's not complete until we get out to Highway 62.
Carl, do you envision what would it take to get to?
I think it's 12 inch to 62. Well, eventually, and what Kevin's talking about, once we're going to do the Ross Drive, bring that over to Twisted Oak, and so that's going to be a part of the loop that eventually this 12 from 62 can loop back over there and pressure up the whole southwest part of the town, you know, and make that full loop. But until we get that done, we're not going to have that loop, and so we already have issues. I just see this, and it would be great. Maybe the nation comes in and they build a huge water there and
Well,
and it solves all of our problems.
that was my next question. I mean, they're going to.
But you know, that's not here today, and know how that's going to flesh out for a while yet. So, but to truly loop it, you know, and that's what, to get over to the edge of the property, that's about 3/4 of a mile. Get over there, you know, and I know that's a long ways, but man, I just think when we have a 4 inch and a 3 inch and all these that we have pumps on that all that has to go and has to work in order to keep the pressure there, and who's paying for that upkeep and maintenance of those pumps that are keeping the going in that area, that when they fail, just like some of the pumps that we had fail a couple years ago and we couldn't get new pumps, we're renting pumps and we're wearing out the pumps, and so we have to buy the pumps for rent because we're wearing them out because,
Right.
I mean, I don't know, I just, we're getting a system that we're utilizing pumps to pressurize small lines to try to get the volume and pressure we need, rather than running adequate size lines that don't require of the system.
Right, 12-inch line.
With a bore of 62 as well, so probably a little bit.
Oh.
12's on the east side of 62 there. But, you know,
We're talking $1 million worth of. About $20 a foot for every times this diameter.
Well, I was going to ask, what is it? Am I looking at this? I'm probably not counting it right, so don't laugh at me. You know, you guys know these maps and roads better than I do. 3 miles from 62 to 76. Is that 3 miles? I'm looking at the. Okay, I thought I was going with the flats. Yeah. Okay.
So Carl, I think I'll just hitchhike go on what you're saying. One of the things our people tell us constantly is don't don't go beyond our infrastructure, so.
And I don't know what the solution is other than I've seen the issues we've had with ups. And I detest that because we've had some issues with everything fails.
Yeah.
Have the ability to replace air, but that's the only way to get the adequate pressure and volume through. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Jane? Done a lot more talking about this than
Well, like Kevin said, we had a meeting with them last week. They're very aware. It's the volume in the area. The with the engineering firm with Craft and Toll, Anthony was there along with Kendall Dillon. They're aware that there is going to have to be a solution coming forward in the next phases. They obviously they meet the hydraulic analysis requirements for our regulations, all the pressure test and everything. And they even modeled the oaks when they did that. And our ordinance doesn't require that. It's the volume of water. Now you're looking at potentially, we're doing that, the water line on 24th, potentially like city manager said, will be done in this next potential budget year. You're looking at, after this is approved, they're probably at least a year to 18 months before they're applying for a building permit. It's going to take that long to develop the infrastructure for this phase. So when I think about, timing wise, then I'm like, okay, well, that's it. That could be in line with the potential improvements that we're making down 24th, and then working with the applicant and their engineer to find a solution to whether it's another pump, whether it's bringing water from 62 down 24th to this site and connecting to the 12-inch that will be at Twisted Oak. I think that there's multiple solutions.
Or a combination of both.
Or a combination of both. That's correct.
But it would put us on the hook. It building would be on the hook.
So I will say this, that in that meeting as well, that I believe, and please correct me if I'm wrong, our Public Works Superintendent, Jim Miller, had stated that with this first phase, there isn't an issue. It will be the phases coming afterwards. He was talking about full build out. At full build out, which potentially could be, you're talking probably 3 more phases, I believe. Yeah, roughly. But at full build out, that there will be issues if there's not more volume brought to this area, to this quadrant of the city.
What did you say in the next budget year you were hoping to do?
what that's going to allow us to do and lower the water pressure there in order to serve this.
Oh, okay.
They are.
It's just a Band-Aid situation.
So even you're saying even with what's going to be.
No, because it's coming from an area that got volume that we're now, and Kimberly, same area that's serving her.
Oh, Coachella's in that too.
It's on that area going down Highway 7. Volume from that area to feed this,
right?
And that's probably not going to do wonders.
Somebody walked in and said,
from Ross, in my opinion,
okay, that whole
completely looped the system.
2.5.
Right, we're going to do, like Kevin said, we're going to do the Ross over to Twisted Oak. That's a start.
Yeah.
And hopefully, we'll probably move across the Oaks eventually. Move across the Oaks, and maybe all the way over to the edge of this property from the west. And we're still going to get. My concern too is, we okay this, and we'll figure out something in the end. But who's going to pay for that?
Right.
When it's figured out.
So if we do across to Twisted Oak. The 6. And then there's a 4-inch from
I
this
think
neighborhood.
so.
There's a 4-inch from. So we really need from Twisted Oak all the way to 62 is what we in the conglomerate over several projects.
Yeah, and I mean, and Anthony will speak to it as well. Tying into a 12 inch
Mhm.
property.
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
And they're also getting rid of that 6-inch that goes across this property
Yeah.
and ties into
Oh, we
the
talked
oaks as
about
well.
that. I remember
So
that.
they're looping the system
a little bit.
Well, kind of, sort of, yeah.
Within this phase.
Yeah, there's a 4-inch across the south edge there, right? Across this property, then there's a 6.
I remember we talked about
Now,
that.
having said all this, he fully understood, what's Anthony here, he fully understood our concerns. We're talking about another meeting here in 2 to 3 weeks after this council meeting tonight. Get the council's opinion on what you want to see happen over there. Because he did say, you know, in 2 or 3 weeks, we could potentially determine whether or not they actually do this subdivision. I mean, depending on what council desires out there, what we, even in the future, even whether or not this is doable in this first phase with what's already out there, even what needs to be done in the future, 2 years down the road, 4 years, it may help them determine whether or not they. Did I say that correctly?
Yes.
Oh,
That's fine, and you know, our desire is to get 12-inch along all section line roads, and we've required developers in the past to bring 12 inches to not just run across their addition. That's something, at certain times we've assisted with that. Assisted with maybe upgrading some lines in certain. But my concern is, okay, we okay this tonight. Our goal is to get a 12-inch across there. Eventually, the city will probably do that when the city feels like it's the right time to do that, and when we need to. We approve this. That brings our need to the immediate forefront of this is what we got to spend money on.
Right.
When maybe we had some other things we'd rather spend the money on first, or that are already issues.
Right.
And I would love to see this addition happen. It's nothing against the developer, nothing against the addition at all. I just know that have already been complaints in the Oaks with the current system we've got about summertime water pressures. And to add additional homes on there without doing something concrete long-term to address that, and potentially putting the city on the hook to have to improve that infrastructure with the 12-inch before we financially intended on doing that.
Right.
Those are my concerns. Nothing against the developer, nothing against the addition. I'd love to see it happen. Think it's going to be a good. I just don't want to put the city in that position to be on the hook, and I don't want angry residents because we adversely impact their water supply in a system where we had a pretty good idea there were already some issues at peak times. Not most of the time, at peak times.
It's to Blanchard.
no.
Not from there.
No.
I mean, I'm just, or even along 76, could they pull?
No. Right now, there's one place they could pull from our system if we were to enter a contract,
And it would not,
and it's off the Ridge Tower.
okay.
They have a connection. It's the only connection they have existing. It's only.
So often we have people say, talk all night about how growth works. So many reasons why we, in a lot of ways, don't have legal ground. And that's free enterprise, and I'm all for it. But if we have capacity concerns or issues, I'm not against development. But and I want to think about the people that are already concerning. Up to say we have the money to need to put it down, and we need.
What is the timeline for the city to do that?
Do this, we don't have a timeline.
The economy,
For this
it's an
8-7
election
slope to
year.
the Oak Star,
I mean, there's a lot of things you have to think about,
would it
you
do
know.
any good to
Make our budget.
Hey, can I ask a question too?
Yeah.
It would help. It would absolutely help.
So,
Have they looked at that?
Is that need
We're brainstorming.
side too going north?
That's
Yeah,
it.
it could.
Feeding
I
it
mean,
from this,
you could get pressure, you're not gonna get any more ball.
I'm just looking, they're a half-mile line there on the north side of professional animal health. When 8 runs over basically to the tower to the west, you know, are they connecting, doing the board connecting?
I am not sure. I cannot speak to that.
I'm just trying to figure out how we could pull more volume from that side, from that 12 side, through a bigger line, rather than the 4-inch we've got running along. You know, if we're going to put a pump anywhere, I think it would be great to pull off that 12 and put a pump on an 8, some way to.
But that's what Jim had told me. So if the 12-inch was ran from 62, probably there'd likely have to be a pump anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. That's just a thought, because that would probably give us more ability to push volume through that 8 than trying to suck it through a 4.
Where'd you say at?
north of the
Right in that,
animal
right north of,
clinic.
yeah, professional animal health. You know, I don't see where that's connected over to the 12 on the east side of 62, and if we could pull, you know, that's just a thought. I'm just trying to think of all
Are you
things.
talking about
Yeah.
boring underneath 62 there?
Yeah,
and
just
tied
that-
to the 12
To hook that 12 in over into
to
that
the
8,
8,
and
and then run
Oh,
a
I
line
see.
down.
then push that way. If there needed to be a pump, you could put a pump there on that 8, and pull a lot
Okay.
more, push a lot more volume through that 8 than pumps on 4s and 6s.
You're talking about the
I
8 on
agree
the
with
north
that.
side?
What?
The north side of the property?
A professional animal health, yeah, and it goes over.
Oh, yeah,
to-
yeah, yeah.
You know, it goes over
Yeah.
the Lakeview Tower area.
Yeah, but it's not bored under 62 though.
It doesn't show to be right
Okay.
there.
Yeah?
Are we talking about maybe bringing it on down just to 4th Street?
So,
No, I'm just thinking a way to get more water over there right now,
property right here.
quicker. I mean,
Instead of this.
eventually, hopefully we do that 12 along 24th Street, but if
Yeah, 4-inch.
if pushing more water through that 8, if we could get that higher pressure, push more volume through
It has
that,
to go reach out, yeah.
that will allow us to for sure keep the Lakeview Tower fuller easier, and give a better pressure in that whole area. And I think that would help out tremendously. Have you guys looked at that?
And you want, I got it on map here.
Structure, would be willing to,
No, that's because coming to bring the work together, that doesn't really. My concern is the city being left.
So when we got the preliminary plat approved in the PUD, the stipulation was that we had to show that we had adequate pressures. With our hydraulic analysis, we do that. Now, we didn't know there was a volume issue up front. You know, our hydraulic analysis only shows a constant, total flow. At that point, we were unaware of load on the system, if you will. But we are required for subregs to run a 12 along our frontage, which is about 600 feet. But we did show in our hydraulic analysis that, pressures were improved with this section 1. And typically, like Janae said, is we typically don't reanalyze an entire subdivision. I'm sorry. But with this one, we went above and beyond just to show that we are going to help the overall system with this first phase.
Were you saying tap the 8 instead of the 6?
I'm saying what they're
Possibly
doing everything they're doing, but I just think that we have a volume issue there, and in addition to pressure, and I was just looking at potential options without running the 12 120. We would prove that all these things that we were looking were going to have adequate volume to allow them to be done. That just looked at to me like a possible to get the volume, and that's a bore. That's not running a whole lot of line. That's just
right.
Put in there, and as we move forward and at a minimum, we're going to get an 18, more than likely, or at least a 16 within a half mile of that 8. And so there would be more than adequate flow to handle that over to the 8-inch and pumps necessary to pull off that. I know we've approved multiple developments that hydraulic analysis showed would have no adverse impact on our system, and when it gets built out, it has adverse impact on our system. And the new residents in there are frustrated because they don't have adequate water pressure, and the old residents adjacent to it are frustrated because they don't have adequate water pressure, and they're mad at us. And the engineers don't matter because hydraulic analysis said it all worked out, but in reality, for whatever reason, we ended up with low water pressures, and we ended up with people that were very frustrated because we allowed additional development that adversely impacted their water supply.
Right. And, Marcy said that, they're pro-growth, but in addition to growing, you have to, improve your system as well. Just like, for instance, we have traffic impact fees we have to pay. But, I don't know if there are other impact fees that would, supplement, improve infrastructure throughout the city. That's something you could look at. It's not just, like you said, it's not just our addition, it's previous additions as well. But, today, our addition, for some reason, was looking for an answer for the city. And
no, we're barely getting by right now, but we're getting by.
Right. And like I said, we are going to help the acres with that 6-inch along Lakeview. In our meeting with Kevin, the public works director, and Janae, like she said, we're going to have a meeting. We're going to discuss it, and we'll have future development. We'll have some solution moving forward. But at this point, the 116 lots we shouldn't have an impact with us tying on to that 6 along Lakeview.
Want to tie the 4 and the 6 together.
We're double tapping the I think it already is. We're tapping it.
No.
No.
No, it's not.
It stops.
It stopped. So we're not
Yes.
continue it. We're gonna tap it in and bring it through.
Oh,
our-
okay, bring it across.
Bring it across.
Okay.
And then we're tapping 4 twice, and we're running 12, which would help improve pressures in addition to that additional flow from the 6. We got it twice. It's between our, it's like either side of our entrance, Kevin. Yeah, so either end of the entrance. That way we have a constant loop just in case something should happen.
Loop in the neighborhood.
We're looping, right, we're looping our tap as well as looping that 6 that currently doesn't feed Lakeview.
They do the 8
Oh,
instead
man,
of 6 and
acres,
more
I'm
into the
sorry.
highway. Has to do with this. I was gonna say, would it be redundant? So you say you're putting a 12 in across?
By subregs, we have to run it, we're gonna run a 12 along our frontage, which is like
Okay.
607 feet.
Right. It's not.
So it will be there.
Do we have flexibility? Possible there. So instead, could you bore 62 and take off that 8 inch instead?
Well,
Can
that
we do
12,
that?
the 12 won't be replaced.
Just an idea.
No, but eventually, the goal is and so each one of these section lines coming from the east, coming into this 12 along 62, will have a 12 feeding it. A lot of redundancy coming off of that 8. What's the problem right now is all our water is coming from the north and will continue to come from the north over, and
Our right here is serving the Oaks. All those to the west. This one tower feeds those.
It's that southwest quadrant out there, yes. We have a line, we also have a line, 12-inch line coming back up 76.
Okay.
That is fed off of a 12-inch line that's on 130, which we right now have a temporary pump on that's basically been permanent for the last year.
What tower does that one come out of? All that come.
Everything starts up toward the Hidden Tower and
Tower.
comes down this direction.
Probably what we need is a 12-inch board underneath Main
Yes.
Street tied to the 8,
Yeah.
and then maybe even continue the
12-inch coming directly across, which is what we've discussed, a 12-inch coming underneath all the way down, connecting to their 12-inch property.
Right.
And then eventually we get the section tied in from the edge of their property all the way down to Twisted Oak.
Yeah.
And then you'd have a continuous 12 all the way down 24th.
that's eventually that's the plan. But I just wonder if we could take a look at boring 62. Well, would be something they could show would give us an increase enough to make up for the addition of these houses they're looking to build in the. Like I said, one more house out there, there's already pressure issues at certain times of the year. Phone calls in August when you build one house out there because something doesn't have water pressure.
My neighbors.
And so, I would like that at least looked at because, like I said,
Can you show me what 8 and 12 year
Yeah,
represent?
Yeah.
that's right.
It's on.
him or you or either one.
Oops.
Oh, it looks so simple on the map.
8-inch right here ties into this,
Tower right there, right? Where they
and then
intersect.
what they're talking about is coming on
Where the 8 and the
east
6
side
and the
of
12
62
intersect, is that the
there.
tower?
What's that?
Where the 6 and the
Right,
6 and the
4
8,
inch.
where
This
they
is an
meet,
8
that's
inch,
the tower,
and there's
right?
6-inch coming down this.
Over off of
Right.
Lakeview.
So it's already
tied to the, oh, it's not tied to the,
Oh,
No,
yeah.
That eight's
yeah,
not
but-
tied
it
to
doesn't
the
go
eight.
into the highway, that's what,
I guess.
And that's, that's the thought, is if we could bore into that 12, if we're gonna have to pump from anywhere, that will at least allow us to get some volume up to the tower.
Right.
That would be my preference, is something to look at.
I would, like I said, Kendall, both meeting in 2 or 3 weeks or so. Just this. Also, we're trying to get a meeting with these guys and with Kenny Sullivan next week.
Tell us when. We'll be there.
Next week with Kenny Sullivan, since he started all this out here. To discuss this. So I would recommend tabling this until next month.
I think that's a good idea. I said nothing against you
No,
guys, but
not at all.
like I said, Kimberly lives in an addition that we were assured had plenty of volume and would have no issue on the system, and there would be no problems. It's not even fully built out yet, and the residents have water issues there.
Every day.
Right.
And that's the area that we're going to look into.
Like I said, when we do these hydraulic analysis, we're under the assumption that there's a constant supply.
Yeah.
We're unaware of how full your tower is or isn't, or there's, a pump towards the tower, going to the tower, or on the downside of the tower. So we're not aware of your total system as a whole. We're just looking at it from fire flow tests at different points of the day, and that's how we model it. So you're correct, is we show on paper that it doesn't have to respect, but it could or could not.
Now, did your modeling include connecting, that this 8 was already connected to that 12?
No. We'd have to go get another fire flow test. Volume wise, if that's going to work.
Well, more than adequate volume.
And, the timeline is, Janae said, we're probably not going to build a house for another 18 months.
Right.
So, we take that into consideration as well.
Yeah, but we're not going to get anything done in 18. Off to Twisted Oak, and like I said, yeah, so
if it's, consists around the horn, if the continuance, then we can table it to, another meeting. But I think we all knew up front this was, item that, and, part of the preliminary plat that, we'd show that it would work, and it does. And so I think with this first phase, looping that 6, help the Oaks, just with the 116 lots. So.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Item number 7D, information item regarding diagnostic report submitted. Line regulations.
This item is just a information item regarding where we are with the development code update to chapter 153, 154, and 155, as you stated. This report basically looks at what our code is doing now and what we need to change and how we're going to change it. So that whole diagnostic report was included in your packet. If you have time to read through that, you'll see the suggestions that they're making to develop our new code out of. We just received our first small piece of chapter 154, the zoning code. Looking at our zoning designations, we have bi-weekly meetings with Fries and Nichols. So the next stage is actually going through the rewrite. That's what they look at the diagnostic, and then we develop the rewrite out of that. The mayor and our planning commission chair did meet with them to review this diagnostic report. And so now we're moving forward onto the next phase, which is, like I said, developing the rewrite. So you will see us come before you with these pieces as we are able to get them to a point to present them to planning commission, city council as we continue to proceed this project. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I've studied it thoroughly and I have no questions. All 129 pages. And
Can you give a condensed summary of that?
make that-
You're just pulling words out now. You said we're in what,
Some of the things
one?
that we're looking at is like the way that our code reads and the way that we want it to read. So it has the ability for anybody to interpret it. It doesn't, you don't need a planner. Looking at if we're going to go from edge of pavement instead of taking the center line of a road to determine a setback. Examples like that. That's just in the zoning code. But those are things that we're determining and that what they're looking at through this report and how we're going to change it to make it better for the city of Newcastle.
Are these are local, these are from city, arguably balancing us with other.
Yes, sir.
Is it a national?
Yeah, they're taking their expertise and knowledge, holistically, and then also down to, I think, the balance of looking at other commensatory cities, what other cities are doing, and with the rewrite and how they are implementing their development code
I did like
subdivision.
that
So
high level, but that's what we probably need to be doing because we all know we've adopted and adjusted and amended, and it's time to probably have a real thorough. I thought we did this a few years ago. Codes. Didn't we do a code review 8 or 10 years ago?
08, 09?
Yeah,
Somewhere in
like
there.
that. Thorough than that, and looks much more. I don't know, it just really looks like a professional.
One of the individuals working with this. But yeah, they're very good. They know what they're doing, and I did instruct them not to norm in our Newcastle. See how well that goes.
Then there's that.
Well, that's what I was like, that's what my concern. Where we're at now and where we will probably go.
Oklahoma City, correct.
Correct. We don't
I
want
know
to get
just our sign ordinances alone. Planning Commission, Gordon. Back in your first 25 years. First 25 years. But we had Mr. Rice in. I mean, we that one part of it. So.
We want to take all the legalese. Just jump up and down, and prove that.
That's so lawyerly of you.
trying to put a few attorney. Open, Chris.
Ask as they do the sections. Draft.
Yeah.
We can have time. Little second. Give it to them before.
Worried about that. I thought, oh my gosh, like what if we approve them all at once and then I go back later and think, why did I do that?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, they're just so
Right.
omnibus.
That's
I think
right.
of omnibus.
Good job,
It's not like it's all like this much, and you go, okay, yeah.
Very good. So when, now what, when do we expect to have the first grouping of this?
The first, so we'll be doing the zoning first, and then it'll be subdivisions, and then it'll be sign code. So I would say by, we're looking at sometime this summer that we're gonna get you we'll have a meeting regarding the zoning chapter.
Okay.
Like Gordon said, I will meet with them and see if we can take sections of that zoning chapter. You know, maybe we'll do the residential section, and then we'll do the commercial section, and then maybe the additional development regulations. Talk with them and see how they feel about providing that. Once, like I said, we'll get the draft. Staff will do revisions. We send it back to them. They'll make revisions, and then we'll see where we are on that first draft copy.
Do we get
For
it
that.
red line that way we can physically? Because I don't know that I would recognize changes if redlined or something. Then I could see, okay, we're taking this out, but we're rewording it to this.
So maybe is what we'll do is the matrix like they had provided us for this first little phase is what they did is show the zoning designations as they are now, and then what the proposed, right,
Okay,
side by
that could
side.
work, yeah.
So something like that. Maybe
Yeah.
we'll figure that
Because
out.
like when we did rules,
Uh-huh.
you would miss it if that could work too, like in
Yeah.
a table like existing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, that could work too. Same effect.
Thank you very much. Item
you.
number 8, discussion of possible action regarding agreement with FSV Architects and Engineering for design and development of commercial property owned by the city and located on the southeast corner of the Highway 130, Fox Lane, and Highway 6.
Okay, I was looking at something else there, sorry about that. So business or whatever may be buys a piece of property on that, they would be responsible for bringing their private connection to their mains. FSB has some good experience in doing this type of work. They've done several things over in Moore. I'm sorry?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Staff would recommend FSB.
Any public comment concerning this agenda item? Any additional comments from council?
Motion to approve agenda item 8
Second.
For 136,000.
for 136,000
Motion second
FSB.
to approve agenda item number 8.
Yes.
Jean Reed,
Yes.
Kimberly Sutton,
Yes.
Marcy White.
Yes. Item number 9, discussion of possible action on the request of 4 Point Energy for 1-year extension of time for permitted uses and activities under UPOR 2023-028, dated July 10, 2023 for the Racer 22X15-9-4, 1HA located in section 22, 9 North, 4 West, Indian Meridian.
4 Point did have these permits approved in July of 23. They are asking for an extension on one permit of the 4 that's on this oil well site. Everything is in order. Janae and I both have looked at that. I mean, and according to ordinance, there's really no reason not to grant them another year to drill. Now, the permit, according to ordinance, the permit does expire within that year, and they've already paid, but they have not started any activity whatsoever on this property at this point.
They've cleared.
They've cleared.
But no drilling activity.
No drilling activity.
Where was this one?
16th Street. Guys, might as well talk to you long enough.
You're all the way up
I
to
didn't-
item number 9. I thought sure.
Yeah, I'm here quite often. My name's Scott Osborne with 4 Point. Just to be honest, we have started clearing location. Unfortunately, weather has just not been our friend lately. As you guys have been talking about a lot of water, we're getting it down there too, and it's kind of been rained us out. We're trying to get that cleaned up as best we can. The reason for the extension is we've been trying to work with some of the property owners around there on the pipeline right away, as briefly discussed. And we're having some issues and working through that with them. And while we have the right to proceed under the Surface Damage Act, we'd really like to try to negotiate with them, work out a peaceful solution with them, if you will, rather than proceeding through the legal system. Save them a lot of money and save us a lot of money at the same time. That's really the reason we're asking for that.
Motion to approve item 9.
A second.
Motion second for approval of item number 9.
Fullerton.
Yes.
James Reed.
Yes.
Kimberly second. Yes. Marcy White. Yes.
Item number 10, discussion of possible action regarding project paving improvements, Munis Drive.
This change order is in relation to the driveways. Additional saw cut is going to have to be. Our understanding that it's not, it's actually to the temporary easement line that we have on all these properties. Have to do some more saw cuts, take the concrete out. That was not actually part of the bid package or the process for these contractors. Some of the other things that needs to be done as well, like securing the inlets and things of that nature, that has to be done. Not also part of that bid package. So it's 20,000. Did you get that part of it, Camille, sent to them in the position? Okay.
Yeah.
So it's 20,000, additional $20,000 for the contractor to perform that piece of it. Less than 10% of the actual total price.
This is a Yukon, right?
Correct.
For the
Our timeline on that.
What's
you know. What's the timeline to finish that right now? Do you know?
Well, we'd love to get it done before June 30, but I'm not going to hold my breath.
I'm just happy if we get it done before the second week.
Well, absolutely. It'll be done.
That's
today.
that's the bigger.
I just want to finish it in this budget, and maybe we'll still.
Well, that's true. I agree, but yeah, school would be fabulous. So.
No. In the plans. And no, the saw cuts were not included. Saw cuts and removal of concrete.
Questions or concerns? Not a lot we can do.
No.
So do it.
Get her done.
Get her done. Is it her or her?
Her.
Her.
Like a motion on get her done?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, make a
I don't know
motion.
if that's a motion.
Approve agenda item 10 for the change order for SW.
Second.
Get on the stick, you know?
Yes.
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 Marcy White, yes.
Discussion possible action to approve. 2024, the resolution number 2024-0.
Yes, and this is on the speed limits, setting the school zones out there on 76. Goes from 55 to 40 to 30. The lowest it'll go is 30 mile an hour right in front of the school over there, church, that's church. Exit on that going south, vice versa coming north.
Where's it gonna start decreasing?
It will start decreasing down to 40 miles an hour I believe just past Highway 130 if you're going southbound. I believe it's just on the southern side of Highway 130, maybe the north. Starts increasing again as you approach, I believe, Southwest 4th and Southwest 6th.
So this isn't wind flashing or time?
It will be, yes. It still will be. There's two times during the day that the lights will be on.
Okay, and so if it decreases from 55 to, did you say 45?
As you're approaching the school zone, it comes 55, 40, and then you go into the school.
Wind flashing?
All right, let me, so.
Wind flashing, yes.
So they're gonna slow down to 45 whether the school zone flashes.
40, yes.
They're gonna slow down to 40.
That's right.
So if there's no school, summertime, whatever, then 55 and then to 40 until that's that. If the lights are flashing, they'll slow down to 30. And when that's that, my goodness, that's a pretty, I support the school zone. That's a pretty significant change to 76.
Well, and given that it's right there at that intersection and the widening.
It's wonderful for Highway 130 intersection.
Was that, did you put that speed limit stuff in?
Impact speed, oh, I just said fee, impact fee. We're charging, oh, that's a good.
Always
idea.
taking money.
Yeah, the traffic going in and out of that school is causing a lot of down and stopping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going too fast.
You know, yeah, we need it. But even when there's no school there, we got 76 traffic, Blanchard traffic's going to be slowing down to 40.
Going to 45 right now anyways.
Huh?
So it's supposed to be slowing to 45.
But I think, you mentioned it, I think that's referring to the recommended for the orange signs, right? Where it's 55, the speed limit doesn't change to 45 on 76.
Not on 76.
It recommends it, but it's not a speed limit. It's not a lawful requirement, but it should be.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that was the case. Okay.
Just suggested.
I don't know why it's not,
Just all
because
recommended.
if they say that's the safe speed to drive, why isn't it the speed limit? But
Right.
as I understand it, that's
I did not know
recommended,
that.
but
That's
55. But now, right, did we approve that?
Not yet.
But we did score 30 instead of 35. It's what, remember we was talking about between 25 and 35, if it could be, and
So we're writing back saying, okay, we're good to go. That
Yes, that's correct.
cool. Okay, well, I make
Motion second.
Robertson?
yes.
Jean Reed?
Yes.
Yes, Marcy White?
yes.
Ron?
Discussion and possible action for approval of school zone maintenance. Oklahoma Department of Transportation. Advanced school warning signs.
City's responsibility after.
Motion to approve item 12.
Second.
Motion second for
Is that
approval of
fast
item
enough
number
for you?
12. That's getting there. Getting there. I have no idea what that means.
Spending more money per usual,
Okay.
but it is for a good cause. After further reviewing with Guernsey and their employee that was a former ODOT employee, we decided to change the scope, which obviously increased the price a little bit as well. The major changes was some additional sidewalks, some safety items, including like handrails and where the sidewalks connect by our drainage ditches, the shoulders have to be wider per ODOT. And basically, he said we needed to design this plan to be as complete as an ODOT looking plan could be before submitting it. Those tend to get favored better. And the other major thing was changing the standard streetlights to all solar. So we would not have to run electric all the way down 10th and 8th Street, and we would change those all to solar lights. So that kind of changed the cost as well.
So ODOT managed
The TAP grants.
correct, even though for city
Correct.
requirements, okay.
Correct. So that made the price originally, I think the grant was for just under 800,000, and now it'll be basically 1,900,000 or just over almost 1.1 million basically.
And the sidewalk's gonna be on just one side, right?
Both.
On both sides.
Oh, both sides?
On both sides, once it gets to by Windermere,
Yeah.
because there's already, like where that park is, there's already sidewalks on the south part. So we would have it on the north and then all the way to those north entrances, and then it would go all the way to Country Club on both sides there.
Also adds crosswalks. It adds a crosswalk
Oh, that's
to
good.
connect to our.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
yeah, I see that, good.
Yep. So it'd bring those kids around that corner and then safely across as well.
It's, answer your question, also, safe routes is what this is about.
Oh, okay.
And this is not safe routes.
It's not, but
Same thing.
correct.
Okay.
That's a speedway.
It
We have
cannot.
grant funds for it.
Yes, we're fine. He has assured me I've not overspent the grant
Just
monies.
you are.
So,
Correct. Grant funds.
Reluctantly, I mean conditionally.
All right.
I'll make a motion
thank you.
to approve item 13.
Motion second for. Item 14, discussion and possible action on the election of 2 nominees for the Oklahoma Group Board of Trustees.
Oh, yeah.
Have they done anything crazy?
I know, Kevin, just tell us what to
If
do.
not, there's 2 incumbents running, so
I don't-
One of them sent their letter of recommendation or something in there, letter of introduction or something.
Bartlesville did.
Bartlesville did.
Yeah.
That's my thoughts. If they haven't run us off the rails, I have no problem with moving forward with the 2 that are the incumbents.
Okay. I agree, Carl. Let's go. You want a motion on that?
Absolutely.
Make a motion.
Second.
Motion second for approval of item number.
Yes.
Jean Reed?
Yes.
Yes. Marcy White?
Yes.
Charles?
Item number 15 is city manager.
I've heard a lot of compliments, just like council has on our 356 people, I think's the last count. I heard.
Wow.
All pledge allegiance.
Yep. Kevin cried, teared up a little.
I didn't cry. I don't cry.
It was teared up a little.
He glistened all over.
He glistened.
It was allergies.
Moisture. Yeah, it is springtime. It is springtime.
It's pipes, man. It'll get all of them. Lower.
The bath pipes were a great addition, I have to say.
Kudos to those Pioneer who
Oh, I know, right?
provided a lot of good food.
Mom's ice cream.
If I know our
sandwiches.
little chamber person. Kudos to whatever role the chamber. They were talking. Last minute.
Yeah, she was.
She was. And
others were too.
I will give those to our employees, Anna, Charlotte, and Laura.
They were.
All three
Yeah.
of those stayed.
You're right. I would,
Yeah.
cleaned up the
Scott did a great job. Don't want to leave Scott out.
They played the whole thing.
Yep,
I
you
just,
did good.
we're thankful to have parking spaces.
I took a picture of mine. I noticed you did too. I was like, a perk. I did.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, and thank you to whoever put
Let's see.
Tommy's name on there too.
Are you done with your comments?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Item 16, council member comments.
Kudos.
How many days?
They put him on there as former because he was here for. He's on the plaque, yeah.
We voted
I was
to
like,
go.
oh, that's so good. They remember
Build
to
it.
put Tommy on there.
Plaque up?
Yes.
Did I make it?
Are you not friends with our city
It's
manager on
so
Facebook?
pretty.
I mean,
I
really.
didn't see it.
I didn't see it at the building. Scott or somebody posted it.
Our
on
city
the
manager
page.
posted on his Facebook page.
And so, yeah, it's really pretty too.
Thank you.
Any council member comments?
I do.
Okay.
I just one is hoping to meet with us from the Coalition Against Big Trucks.
Yeah.
That,
I saw that.
okay.
Council voted on that 2 or 3 years ago.
Yep.
You did. And it.
I might have been on sabbatical. Okay,
Yes,
very
council
good,
did vote.
very good. I don't need to respond back to
You
her.
voted against it for?
No, you voted for it.
Okay.
Yeah, that was passed on.
Okay.
All right.
I don't know why they.
Yeah, okay. She really wants to meet with me 15 or 20.
I know. I got a reminder
Told her it's gonna be
today.
gone.
Saw how junk mail it was, like mass mail, personal mail. So I have.
Alrighty, item number 7. Is that all the council comments? Okay. Discussion of possible action on entering. Discussing negotiation concerning. Item 17B, discussion. Session of permit under 2508. Discussing negotiation concerning employees. 3910, collective bargaining agreement. Make a motion we enter into an executive session with our city manager. Executive session.
Mike Charlton,
Yes.
Jean Reed.
Yes.
Kimberly,
Yes.
Marcy White.
Yes.
Charlotte.
5-minute break.